Hi, this is Coach World TV. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Evan Katz. And I have to say, we call him the anger guy, and we're going to find out all about why. And I'm going to tell you all about him in 1 second. I do want to let people know this is an ICF NYC sponsored television show, and this week we lost a dear, dear colleague, someone who also co-hosted this show at times, Bonnie Gerwitz. So I just want to acknowledge that. I also want to let Bonnie know her spirit is running rampant here as well as everywhere else, and get started with this show. Evan, thank you so much for coming from Atlanta, Georgia.
It is great to be here. Thanks.
It is great to have you here.
I really appreciate it.
And I want to acknowledge this wonderful new studio. I don't have a clue how to use anything in it, but it's really a massive improvement. So, as I introduced you as the anger guy,
yes,
I want to know, where did that come from, and should we be nervous, or are you under control here?
I'm under control.
Good,
when
good.
It's getting close, we call them an anger relapse.
Ah, okay. Well, don't have that. 28
no
minutes and then you can go crazy.
We're fine. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and thank you to the Federation as well for having me.
Great.
I'm really enjoying my time here in New York and glad to spend some time with you. I grew up a very angry young man. I had a father who had some anger problems and had drinking problems, and my brother and I grew up with someone who didn't have a handle on his own anger. And I very much became like my father. Things were very out of control when I was a child, and out of control as you grow up gives one a propensity to want to be in control. So as I grew up, sometimes the best I had and times I felt the most comfortable was when I was watching static on the television as a little kid. Not a whole lot of people can remember when that was the case, but it wasn't always 24 hours.
I'm not going to confess. Really? Static? No.
Well, as I grew older, I became very much like my father, and I went into the military and learned how to drink like my father, and fell on both ends. I pushed people away, and I isolated, and I drank to cope with things, and I was very angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry that I wasn't getting what I thought I deserved, and I felt very much like a victim and very powerless. And then years later, my father was in the hospital. He was sick, and I flew to Miami where he was, and we got in an argument just as we would have, and I felt that I had won the argument just as the ICU nurse was pushing me out of the room. And 4 hours later, they called me and said, you know, your father's still angry over what happened. You need to get down here and apologize. So I drove down, not thinking anything was really going on, and angry that he got me again. And when I got there, I walked through the doors. It was very quiet. It was surreal. And he was dead. So I sat next to him, and then one of the first thoughts to hit me was, I am just like my father said I was. He was right. I'm no good. And I lived with that for a couple of different years. And eventually I went into counseling myself to start to deal with this. I said, I'm not going to do with my daughter and my wife what I had done with my father and been the child. So I changed quite a bit, and by now I was a clinician, and I was practicing, and I used the skills I had to not only help myself, but to see how I could help other men who had many of the same problems. So after 3 or 4 years, I really started to dedicate myself back to working with men primarily who were successful, but their lives at home were falling apart. They were rewarded for their aggressiveness in the workplace, but their lives at home were falling apart. And someone asked once, you know, well, who are you? What's your name? I said, I'm Evan. I'm Evan Katz. I'm the anger guy down the street. And it stuck. They said, oh, the anger guy. And to this day, people will call and say, are you the anger guy? I don't remember your name, but are you the guy that helps people? And that's where I got it. I specialize in counseling, have for most of my career with angry men and high-risk teens, and with women also, but most of the people who call me are men.
So it's a badge that you wear proudly.
I wear it proudly because now I use it to leverage my anger, to help other people, to be a good person myself, to try to make the world a little bit better. That's kind of my goal.
Fantastic. So tell us, as coaches, why do we need to have anger management skills? We're coaching, the world's great, and we're reframing, and it's all good, and so why do we need anger management skills?
Well, let's face it, all of us have anger. Sometimes we don't even realize when we're defending ourselves. Anger is really a big front. It's a shield. I mean, if you think about it, if a rock is coming off the back of a truck and we're driving our car right behind that rock coming forward, what do? We duck.
Swerve.
We swerve. we move, right? And why would we put our arms up? Why would we flinch? I'll ask my clients, why put your arms up? They're like, obviously, I don't want to get hurt. I say, but why not put your face out there? Why your arms? I say, because it's more, the face is more valuable. The chest is more valuable. It's more important. It's more vulnerable as well. And I agree with them. I say, that's right. You put up your arms because if you have to let something go, it's better to let this go. And this is our shield. And if we look at it as the rock coming towards us is a threat, whether it be verbal or losing a job or being compared or feeling compared to someone, then we put up that shield of anger and we either push people off and push things off and not take ownership, or we go inside and we beat up on ourselves too much. Anything not to feel the fear and the powerlessness and that feeling of out of control I talked about associated with how we really feel. So the anger is a shield. The anger is fueled by the fear, and it helps us not feel feelings. Instead, it helps us stay in our head.
Well, when you mention fear, now it starts to sort of all come together, because as coaches, what we do is create change. We want to change. We want people to change. We want them to step out of their comfort zone. But with change comes fear. Everybody's afraid of change until you get in there and do it. So and anger is one way you react to being fearful.
Absolutely.
So and now the connection has been made. Tell us the name of the book that you have out right now, because we're going to talk about some of the things you have in there.
The book is called Inside the Mind of an Angry Man.
And he wants to be careful to make sure it's not only men. Yes, go ahead.
That's right. It's inside the mind of an angry man.
We too can get angry, yes.
And it's about how to help angry men and those who love them. You had asked earlier another piece of why do coaches need anger management skills? Our country, in my estimation, is in the heart of an anger epidemic. We are the front line. We are the diamonds in the rough, helping professionals, coaches, counselors. Any helping professional has a sense, a desire, and training to be able to help others that are angry. Our country has all kinds of problems right now, and particularly with our military coming home, hundreds of thousands of mostly young men and women who have seen some horrific things or been privy to some very difficult situations. They're coming home with a lot of trauma. We've heard the expression PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And anger is one of the primary components, one of the main symptoms that comes from that disorder. So one can have a lot of anger without being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And as coaches, we work with symptoms. When I'm coaching, I work with symptoms of PTSD. I'm not a clinician, so I don't diagnose and treat PTSD. But nonetheless, from almost every angle today, our country is under siege from a grip of anger on our children, on ourselves, and we deserve to be happy. We live in a wonderful country. So I decided to develop something called the Anger Guy Institute, where I am particularly committed and on a mission to break and change, confront the anger epidemic that has seized our society, and especially making it a priority to be there for our military. They have been there for us, and we as helping professionals are in a very special position to be there for them. We are the diamonds in the rough. We really are. We are the ones who can really make a change in such an emotional subject. So why do coaches need anger management skills? Because they're going to be getting a lot of clients if they are prepared to help them.
Wow. Interesting, and I know that your heart lies with the military, but I just want to point out, just in case you're wondering, okay, maybe you're angry and maybe someone else is angry, the headlines this weekend I've read, and they're still amazed that there were 14 killings, I believe, in the boroughs and 25 shootings or something. There's some anger going on out there. And so should we talk about first what the Institute will do, or the 5 A's of how do we, because he's not telling us that coaches should deal with PTSD. We know we're not qualified to do that. And if we see signs of that, we should, you know, hand that off to a professional. But so how can we, what are the stages? You keep saying there's an institute and it's going to deal with 5 steps. What are those? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Anger Guy Institute, named after the Anger Guy, I founded that. And the Institute is really an organization. It's an idea. It's a mission. It's a vision where people have a new method of dealing with the causes underneath the symptoms to really resolve problems. You know, trying to manage and control symptoms, if you don't deal with the cause, does nothing but make them worse. And we know this by virtue of the recidivism rate in our country and how anger continues to grow and to be a problem. So the 5 A's of anger are a very succinct 5-step method that I have been practicing for many years. And that process is something that I want to teach coaches, counselors, mental health professionals, anyone in the helping professions, so that they can help other people who need the help. And anyone can learn it. It's really not that hard. But to teach it is a little bit different thing. So my mission right now is to get out and form an army of certified professionals with this 5-step method so that they can help other people and they can help people grow. And it's absolutely astounding how it happens. I've worked with hundreds of people over almost 20 years now, essentially using this same philosophy. And it's rewarding, it's a very basic, it's foundational, and it really helps our clients.
Okay. So with the Anger Institute, the Anger Man Institute, yes. What is this a year course? How does this work? How long does it take? Is it in person? Tell us a little bit about how this is going to happen.
Well, I've really tried to keep costs and time down, because it's always difficult to come up with $500, $600. So what I've done is created a 2-day course. I could certainly do it for a week, but it's a 2-day course to be about 12 hours. It should qualify for continuing education in most professions. And it's designed to give a coach a basic understanding of how to identify, approach, and deal with an individual who is stuck in anger, either self-sabotaging through pushing others away or from saying negative self-talk to themselves. But it's designed to help them kick off right away to where they can go out and work with someone, and they will know through an anger cycle that I have designed exactly where their client is, and they can teach their client that, and the client begins to monitor themselves.
Tell me a little bit about how we can recognize anger. Do we have to wait for a client to go, I'm really pissed off about that? Or are there signs that what are some of the signs that I'm not sure I would know that someone was angry unless they said, I'm angry.
Right.
You know, so, or is it something that we notice, but we don't know how to deal with it, so we try to reframe it or do the other coach things that we do?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
First off, there's 3 different types of anger. We have aggressiveness, which most of us know and see. Aggressive folks will not take ownership right away, will blame, will push people off of them, will go like this so that people can't harm them. They create a barrier with the shield. They push out. The passive-aggressive individual is more of a covert type of an anger. It doesn't sound real angry, but in fact, it's creating tremendous division. It can create ridicule for the other person. Sarcasm is sometimes a very good example of passive-aggressive anger.
Whoops.
And passive.
Guilty, I think. Yeah.
Aren't we all? Right?
I think so, yeah.
Passive anger is often the most dangerous, and we often don't see it until it's too late. And this is one who will put a smile on their face, look as calm as possible, and like nothing bothers them, quiet and content. And these are the folks, unfortunately, usually who snap and will shoot up on campuses, and we see in mass killings in Denver and up in the Northeast, up in Maine, and so forth. So these are three ways to be able to tell. Now, why do we get that way? A lot of it has to do with an unconscious view of how we see ourselves. If we see ourselves as valuable, then we don't feel dominated by the rest of the world. But if we have some real question as to our worth, or maybe in a certain type of relationship, whether it be work or a personal relationship, then when something happens, we view a situation in such a way that it's really not what's going on, and we call those distorted perceptions. And there are several different perceptions which I teach professionals to identify and be able to understand, not just in the client, but in themselves, because oftentimes we will respond to things in a certain way too.
Would that be where the 8 questions that are in your book will come in? One is, do you feel like no one's ever respecting you, or you're not getting the respect you deserve?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of those questions? They were all, I was like, ooh, I'm borderline, I think. I think I'm borderline angry, but.
Well, we all are to some extent,
Yes.
right? And I think it's really a good thing to say. I mean, we all have anger, and the only time that it really can be considered a problem overall is when it impacts our lives socially, personally, professionally. We all have, everything's on a continuum. We all have different levels of anger and frustration, and we all work on these things. In answer to your question, some of the questions that I have seen come over and over and over again that one might ask themselves, or ask themselves about someone else. Do people ever mention to you that you might have an anger problem? Has somebody said that to you before? Are you overly critical of yourself and maybe of others? Do you hang on to resentment? Things that other people have done, do they stick back there? Do you keep score?
Keep score, I like that, yeah.
Yes. Some of the other ones might be about self-respect. Do I have respect for myself? And do I trust other people? Do I have a hard time trusting? This is a big one. And another really big one I see is the feeling of being misunderstood. We have to ask ourselves, do I often feel misunderstood? Do I feel like nobody gets it? They just don't understand. And that's why I'm upset. And if they understood, then they'd be able to help me. But because they don't understand, they can't. If we feel this way with even 2 of those questions on a regular basis, there's probably a problem.
So part of the certification would be teaching the person to identify possible anger issues, rather than, because I know sometimes with clients we go around in circles, and it's like, and you just keep, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to give up on that subject and I'm going over here and we'll try something else. But so it really could be an anger issue that's holding him, like an anchor sort of, I guess, just holding him in the same spot, and he's running around in the anger. He or she is running around in the anger. So you're saying not only are you going to teach them how to deal with the anger, but to identify. I think that's even more important for me, but, you know, and because you have a really nice 5-step program or 5-step process, right?
Well, you bring up a really good example of the person running themselves round and round. what we do and what I try to help other people, other professionals understand is that when they're going round and round on a subject, that subject is important. That's one that they are not acknowledging. There's a fear underneath that is keeping them in that cycle. We're not keeping them in that cycle. They're keeping themselves.
What a great perspective. It's like, you know, rather than get frustrated, it's like, wow, I've really hit on something because we're going around in circles.
So what happens is when I may stop someone and say, why are we going round in circles on this? You tell me you want to get better your way. How's that working? Not too well, right? Why are we going round in circles on this? And you will often see the client then get frustrated, which is one reason we don't go there. So we have to understand and have some objectivity and really understand that, well, what is really happening? There's a fear underneath with this individual for whatever reason. Something might seem very simple to us. And they have a fear. They may not even be aware that it's a fear. Oftentimes we are. That I just can't go there. But if we're helping them and really helping them with their anger, then what we need to do is confront it and say, you know, we keep going round and round on this. What's going on?
I like that. It's almost like an attitude, well, it was for me just now, an attitude adjustment. Is that rather than avoid anger, it's like welcome it, because what a challenge. You know that you really hit on a source here, a source of something. So a little bravery, but you won't need bravery if you become certified, because you'll know how to deal with it, right?
Right, and it's very hard to otherwise. It's a paradigm shift in the way we view anger as a whole. It's a new way to help people, to counsel people. It's a new method. It's something that I've been doing for a long time and found that a lot of people just don't know about. And it encompasses all different kinds of techniques, as do many models and structures. It's not any different in that respect. But anger, as I see it, is the top. It's really not about the anger when we meet somebody who has an anger problem, that we say that. It's about the fear underneath of someone getting through to a vulnerable part inside of them that just is too much, that they believe would be too painful if someone saw it or exploited it or became vulnerable. So that individual will do whatever they need to do in order not to let someone in to touch it, out of fear that if you do, it can really harm them. Even though it's not rational, it's how it feels. And if we don't know how to talk it out and aren't aware of it, then we're going to act it out. And going around in the circle is a way of acting it out.
And so that's when you're talking about the shield. That's what you're talking about,
That's what I'm
using
talking
anger
about.
as the shield.
Right. Whenever we see, and it's about identifying. The circle going round and round is this individual doing a defense mechanism we call deflection. So each time you go to kind of pick on it, they go over here. And you bring them back, and they go over here, and they go over here. And what happens at the end of the session? They say, you know, I don't even know why I'm coming. I'm not getting anything done, right?
I'm exhausted, but I didn't get anything done. I've been dancing the whole time. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Once one becomes comfortable with this and understands what it's really about and how to approach and identify and help and intervene with them and help that client. And when you do get to that spot that they're protecting, how to cradle it, how to protect it, how to help people who have sealed this box of feelings that they feel are so, we all have very vulnerable and precious feelings, so tender. They just can't let anyone touch them. And when one of us gets through, it's because they let us through. They gave us permission to help them. Yet we have to get through without reacting to their obstacles, to their anger, to their deflection, to their blaming. All of these different things that come up. And again, there are several of them, and we teach them and help people identify them. And of course, I'll be training other people to train professionals as well, train the trainers, because I can't do it all myself. And with the military issue, I believe, and the feedback I've gotten is this is going to be a very valuable program throughout the country.
Tell us the codicil, is that the right word? Tell us the little agreement that people have to sign if they take your training concerning the military.
You know, it might get some people to stay out, but I am a military vet, and I feel very strongly that our military needs to be a priority, and it's not enough to say it. Our politicians, our leaders talk a lot about action, but only a handful out there are really walking the talk. I mean, what's changing? What's really going on? So as the foundation, the fundamental piece we are as professionals to be able to truly help these folks, I am asking each person who's going to be certified to literally take an oath. And on the certification agreement will be that I agree as a coach or a counselor, an addiction professional, or any other professional who gets this certification. I agree that I will make the military and people, the soldiers coming home and returning from war, they will be my priority. There is nothing more important. They are out there, these young kids, a lot of them, 18, 19 years old, fighting for us and giving up their lives, and we need to meet their needs. We need them to know that we understand, and if we don't understand, we're going to push them to somebody who does. And this, again, is about identifying and knowing how to deal with someone like this, even on a public level, which is where I do a lot of the public presentation, so that people understand what's going on. They look at, you know, the 17-year-old that went off to war, comes back, who's completely different. Most people don't know what to do. Well, they'll have somewhere to send them. So it's about making that military a priority and meeting that need in any way they choose to do it.
Right. It doesn't mean you have to go on the military
No.
base, but what it could be that what you could do is offer a sliding scale to any vet.
If you chose to.
Yeah.
Or maybe making them a priority, always having a spot open.
Ah, okay.
Now, for myself.
Priority appointments, sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm right here, right now. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm offering 5 hours a week at no charge to any military vet who is suffering a symptom of anger due to trauma from the war.
Wow.
I'll offer that as long as I can until I get too busy.
And then hopefully there'll be other people who've been trained who can take it on also.
That's right, but
and you can
I'm
refer.
fully committed to this, and I do
Fantastic.
believe that they are there for us, and we should be there for them.
Well, we have 30 seconds left, believe it or not. And so tell people how they can get in touch with you, because I'm sure they could Google the anger guy and they might find you.
They certainly can. Well, my website is theangerguy.com, www.theangerguy.com. My cell phone, I answer myself. I don't give that off to someone else, because if anybody calls me, they have a need. And I'm going to give it out right here on the air.
Do it quickly.
678-698-0311.
And
Thank
I have
you
just
so much.
time to say thank you so much. You're a great
Thank you.
guest. Okay. Ooh, that went fast.